What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to this week's installment on The Lake Show. I appreciate you guys being very patient with me. Unfortunately, like I mentioned in previous videos, going through a lot in my personal life right now. I'm trying to wrap my head around a couple things that are going on and trying to prioritize what needs prioritized right now. So, I'm a big proponent of mental health. So, you gotta pick and choose your battles. I apologize for not posting last week. Sometimes stuff just pours into your life unexpectedly, and life just throws you for a loop unexpectedly. But, I'm getting better. I'm handling it the best way I can right now. So I apologize to all my viewers who were looking forward to another episode last week, but I appreciate you guys being patient again. And we're going to get back on track this week as I continue to strive and get better. That's what struggle's all about in this world, guys. It's all about making yourself better. It's all about growing, evolving, and just overall becoming a better person. It's making me grow thick skin, that's for sure. There's not a whole lot in this world that's gonna, there's not a whole lot this world can throw my way that I'm not gonna be able to handle. So, I guess I can hang my hat on that, is that I have a good head on my shoulders right now to handle a bunch of things that are being thrown my way. Also, like I mentioned in previous episodes, I am now a Bucked Up ambassador, so use promo code SHOW32. Get yourself 20% off your next order at buckedup.com. Get yourself some t-shirts, some shaker cups, some protein, some pre-workout. Get yourself some gym gear. I'm a big proponent of lifting all the time, and I think that does wonders for your mental health. So head on over to buckedup.com. Use promo code SHOW32. Get yourself 20% off. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, it's that time of year where the NFL draft is coming right up. So everybody at this point in time, at least all the fans of everyone's teams, talks about who they should draft, who they shouldn't draft, and all the NFL scouts and the combines coming up, all the NFL executives and GMs and scouts, all wondering who they should be picking, all wondering who's going to be the savior of their franchise. And if you're the Chicago Bears, you have the first overall pick. This could change your trajectory of your entire franchise for the next 10 years. So we're going to talk a little bit about the 2024 NFL draft rate in a little bit. And I'm going to make my own mock draft for the first round, at least. I'm not going to go through all 7 rounds because we'll be here for 10 hours if I had to sit through and absolutely come up with every single pick that every team was going to do. But we're going to start off with something a little bit different. So, I don't know how many of you were big-time gamers. I don't know how many of you were PlayStation nerds, Xbox nerds, PC nerds. I myself was an Xbox and a PlayStation nerd for a long time. And everybody had their one game. Everybody has that one game that just sticks with them for the rest of their life. As soon as you play it, it just changed your perspective on games. It just became your new favorite franchise. Well, that was me for the NCAA football games way back in the day. So obviously everybody knows that EA Sports, obviously the owner of the NCAA football titles, well, years ago, because of a lawsuit, because of name, image, and likeness being used and players not being compensated, they were forced to stop making the college football games and college basketball games for, consumers to play. And bear with me, guys. Hard to breathe. Allergies are killing me. But, it's kind of crazy to me because it has been 10 years later, and now we're finally getting a new game. Finally, EA and the players, they all came to an agreement to finally make another college football game. There has been speculation for years that EA Sports was making another college football game, another college football title, because that's really been one of their most popular franchises that they've ever released. When you think about EA as a company, Electronic Arts, for those who don't know, but when you think about EA Sports as a company as a whole, one of their biggest staples, obviously, is the Madden games. But unfortunately, the Madden games are absolutely dog shit. Those who continue to pay EA money for the Madden games, I really don't understand what you're what the whole goal is by just giving them money. You are getting the same game every single year, year in, year out, just with an updated roster. That's all the Madden franchise is anymore. It's not fun. The last Madden I truly had fun playing was probably Madden 12, and I was 11 years old then. Guys, I'm 24 now. I'm going to be 25 this year. That's a long time. That's half my life. Literally, right there. It just baffles me that EA has gone so far down a rabbit hole when it comes to microtransactions, the way they even make their games. But, EA has the ultimate license to make NFL football games. So 2K, I still think 2K had the greatest football game of all time. And, 2K, NFL 2K5, I believe it was. Yeah, 2K5, I still think is the greatest NFL football experience, at least put on a gaming console. But for a lot of people that just want to play Ultimate Team the entire time, you are literally... Here's what I never understood about Ultimate Team. And for those who are not gaming nerds, you probably won't know this, or maybe you do know this, but when it comes to the game mode Ultimate Team, the whole idea is you play the game, you earn packs of cards, virtual packs of cards, and you update your roster as you go. You get better players at better positions. You just upgrade your team, make the ultimate team out of everybody that you pick in those packs. Well, the problem is it's basically pay to win. And what I mean by that is, no, you can't just strictly play the game and earn packs and earn new players just by specifically playing the game. They hide a bunch of the great players or great cards behind a paywall. So if you pay, let's say it's $24.99 for 100 packs of cards on Madden Ultimate Team. Now, I could be over-exaggerating just because I don't play Madden anymore because I think it's garbage. The last Madden I played was Madden 22, and that's only because it was a gift from my brother for my birthday. So that's the only time I'm playing Madden, is if somebody gifts it to me, because I actually feel obligated to play it then. But it doesn't change the fact that Madden as a franchise has gone completely in the shitter, and it's absolutely dog shit. So, yeah, safe to say I don't play Madden anymore, and I probably won't until EA forfeits the license to be the only representation of forming NFL games when it comes to gaming consoles. Like, if 2K made another NFL game, I'd be all for it. They can't butcher 2K basketball games anymore than they already have, really, but, that's a story for another day. But when it comes to EA, the scummy-ass business practices, and a lot of companies honestly follow this model nowadays, the pay-to-win aspect, where they hide all the good shit behind a paywall. And it's not just EA who does it. Activision has done it. Excuse me. Activision has done it. Microsoft has done it. All these companies, Xbox, PlayStation, all the companies that fall under that gaming umbrella have used some form of microtransactions. And it's literally an excuse for consumer. It's an excuse for them to, update the game. We don't get fully released games anymore. That's just not modern day gaming whatsoever. We used to pay $60 for a game, pop the disc in to the console, and play it. That's it. It was ours at that point. Now a bunch of gaming companies release half-assed games, half full with content, and just drip feed us content over a long period of time. And that's not the way to do a gaming franchise at all. Release the damn product fully done. Don't release it broken. Fallout 76, that was horrible. Don't release it with pay-to-win aspects and gives gamers advantages for paying more. Battlefront 2, way back in the day. And don't drip feed us content throughout a 2-year span to finally make the game complete. Halo Infinite. That's just the reality of modern gaming nowadays. But, I just went on a tangent about all that. But moral of the story, the NCAA franchise is finally revived, and it's rebranded as EA Sports College Football 25. So it's actually everything that I've been hearing about the game trailer, it's on YouTube. Copyright reasons, I will not play the intro song to it or anything like that, even though I love it. I really think this game is going to be good. It's kind of crazy that all one NCAA, college football 25 will feature all 134 FBS schools, which is a massive milestone. A lot of people, for the longest time, didn't think the game was going to get released. They thought it was just smoke and mirrors. They thought people were bullshitting. They thought EA was completely lying. But that just wasn't the case. There were so many hurdles that EA had to jump through to make sure that they can actually produce this game in the first place. So, like I said earlier, with the name, image, likeness, NIL, everybody knows that the NIL, that's when college kids, they can get paid for their name, image, and likeness. For games, for posters, whatever it may be. Any media content, like, the moral of the story is that the college athletes can finally get paid for people using their name, image, and likeness. So EA had to jump through a bunch of hurdles to overcome this because, they can't just slap all the kids into the game without, talking to them. So I'm thankful that all 134 FBS powerhouse schools, like the main college football conferences and schools, will all be in the game. And the voices of college football have all announced that they'll be in the game. Kirk Herbstreit, he'll be in the game. I can't wait for that. Chris Fowler, he'll be in the game. David Pollock, he'll be in the game. Jesse Palmer, he'll be in the game. Desmond Howard, he'll be in the game. That's just that's just music to my ears because EA, from what I've been reading and from what I've heard so far, EA completely built this game from the ground up. So this game will be on the Frostbite engine, and a lot of people are skeptical about that. It's the biggest red flag, per se, when it comes to the EA college football game because Madden is the game that runs on the Frostbite engine. But the Frostbite engine is just an engine for the game to run on. It's not necessarily the same game. They're completely different franchises. And EA came out, the president of EA came out and stated that this game is completely different from Madden. It's not going to be the same game. It is built from the ground up. And EA honestly has been going all out to make this happen. Players, as of February 22nd, can opt into the game. Where if they choose to opt into the game, obviously they will be in the game. They'll get $600 and they'll get a free copy of the game. Honestly, that's a pretty good incentive if you ask me. If I was a, college athlete at one of these major schools or at any Power 5 school whatsoever, I feel like that's a great incentive, to actually just be in the game. I don't see the downside to it at all. FCS schools, such as like my alma mater, YSU, will not be in the game at launch. So, it's quite possible that we could play with YSU, in the next college football game, at least later down the line. So I look forward to that. But EA has really emphasized the fact that, finally found my train of thought. People don't understand about what drove the college football games, what actually drove the NCAA football franchise as a whole. Dynasty mode has been the staple in college football games ever since the inception of it. Mainly it grew, it boomed, and I want to say, because this is personal experience because I had all of them, but I personally believe that from NCAA 10 to NCAA 14, all those games I feel like did Dynasty mode the absolute best. So EA has had other things to jump through, such as, do you add the NIL? Do you add the transfer portal? Do you add all these things into Dynasty mode? And do you make that the main focus? Which, for all intents and purposes, so far, Road to Glory, that's when you can create your own character, you can basically create yourself, play a season of high school, go to college, and just absolutely dominate. So, Road to Glory and Dynasty, those will be the focal points of this game, which I couldn't have been happier when I heard that, because if they were going to completely do what Madden did and focus solely on Ultimate Team and selling people microtransactions and virtual cards for real world money, I wouldn't even consider buying it at that point. EA has a sketchy track record, I'll say that. They're just, and I feel like a lot of businesses are like this. A lot of these it's basically present in all of the gaming industry. It's actually crazy of how scummy and shitty that the business practices are with those companies where, they don't even give a shit about putting out a good product anymore. It's just about the bottom dollar, which, as a company, yeah, your main goal is to make money. It always is. But at the same time, you have an obligation to actually keep the fan base interested in your franchise. Do you want them to keep paying you money? Yes. Okay, so make a fucking good game. Sorry. That's just how it should be. But moral of the story, EA College Football is going to be, fingers crossed, I really think it's going to be a great game. Built from the ground up, making each experience different because EA took they had schools send in, pre-game traditions, post-game traditions, what's it like on a third down, like just everything you can possibly, every little meticulous detail about when it comes to a college football game on a Saturday, EA wants to incorporate into the college football game experience. I mean, the fact that ESPN College Football Game Day is going to be on there, and I believe it's the ESPN presentation style, that's just music to my ears. I really can't wait for it. And this is dropping in the summer of 2024. And I believe we get a full release trailer in May. So, I'm very excited for it. Everybody, people have already been talking about who they're going to do Dynasty mode with. Oh, I'm going to rebuild Ohio State again. I'm going to rebuild Alabama, Clemson, North Carolina, whatever it is. The true gamers out there know the Kent State Dynasty grind was something else back in the day. Taking the Kent State Golden Flashes and making them the best powerhouse college football has ever seen. There was no better feeling in gaming when it comes to that. That was a fun time. Or absolutely upgrading every single player's attributes on your team, simulating a whole season, and then winning the national championship. I did that before, where I went on a tangent with Miami. I think I won 15 straight national championships before I finally just stopped playing the game. It got stale after a while, but that's just because it was an older title at that point, and we hadn't had a new gaming experience in years. So I'm very excited to, finally be able to play another college football game on an updated console, not so outdated, with the college football playoff in it. Fingers crossed, man, that it's going to be really good. So who do we think the cover athlete's going to be? I want you guys to leave in the comment section. Who do you think that the next EA college football game cover athlete's going to be? I would make a bet that it's either going to be there's three options I think you can go. Jaden Daniels, obviously the latest Heisman Trophy winner, absolute stud at LSU, had a fantastic season. You can do Caleb Williams, the second most recent Heisman Trophy winner, and for all intents and purposes, the best player in college football the past 3 years. If we're being honest, like the most electrifying player on the field. Or you can go with the best coach in college football history, Nick Saban. You could just put him on the cover. Honestly, everybody is going to buy this game just because it's good to have another college football game. But who do you think that the cover athlete would be? I personally think they're going to give it to Caleb Williams. And if they did like a Hall of Fame edition, if they did like a fancy edition of the game, kind of like how Madden has the Hall of Fame edition of their games, and they put like Ray Lewis, or they put, they put like Marshall Faulk on there, or a guy like Michael Irvin. They put a legend, a Hall of Famer on the cover, So I feel like they could do the same thing with Nick Saban if the NCAA 25 was going to go down that road. But if you think about it, over the years of college football that we have not had a game, I thought about who would the cover athletes be of that. Who would be on the covers of those games had they still been released. So obviously NCAA 14 released back in 2013, Denard Robinson was the cover athlete. I didn't understand it just because he was removed from college football for at least 3 years, I believe, or 2 years, something like that. Either way, now I thought about who would be the cover athlete every single year after. So obviously Johnny Manziel 100% would have been a cover athlete. Won the Heisman Trophy as a freshman. Absolutely sensational at Texas A&M. Honestly, when it comes to the most polarizing players and the best college football players that I've personally ever watched, Johnny Manziel is up there as a top 5. The way he played, the way he acted. Now, I know his career didn't go well in the NFL, but there's a lot that was, not told about Johnny Manziel's NFL career. And he actually was interviewed by Shannon Sharpe recently, and I watched that interview. Oh, man, it was such a great interview. You learned a lot if you watched it. But like I mentioned earlier, the NIL deal, all these and I've mentioned this in previous episodes before, the NIL has allowed college football players to make a crap ton of money in college. A lot of guys, some guys like Bryce Young, I believe was making like $3 million a year. I think Quinn Ewers from Texas is up there at $3 million a year. Either way, all the big names in college football, they have big time NIL deals. And Shannon Sharpe, I'm going to play the clip for you. Shannon Sharpe actually asked Johnny Manziel how much he think he would have made in NIL. And I have a number too that I would say, but here's what Johnny Manziel had to say on the subject.
Let me ask you this. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, when Johnny Manziel, his Heisman Trophy season and the season after, the NIL is in existence. How much Johnny Football get?
Probably $10 million a year. I could have done 5 on my own with the Instagram.
So Johnny Manziel believes that he would have made $10 million a year, half of it alone by himself on Instagram. Honestly, I feel like Johnny Manziel could have made more. Obviously, he could have made probably 5, maybe even 6 with the social media aspect and the people he knew and everything like that. But honestly, the potential that Johnny Manziel would have had in today's college football world, I think Johnny Manziel could have at least doubled that. With so many deals from so many big brands, I feel like Johnny Manziel probably could have made upwards of 15 to 20 million when it came to NIL money today. I don't know, but I thought about it. I really think Johnny Manziel, he was easily one of the best college football players I've ever seen. For those who didn't watch the interview, there's a lot of good lessons you'll learn in this. As much as people want to shit on Johnny Manziel, I felt bad for him when I actually watched this. Johnny Manziel he had a rough time especially going to Cleveland. I don't think going to Cleveland helped his case whatsoever, just because I think Cleveland ruins everything they touch. But the problem is Johnny wasn't okay with Johnny. So if you haven't, I would definitely give that a listen. You'll learn a lot from the interview between Shannon Sharpe and Johnny Manziel. But moral of the story, Johnny Manziel claims that he would probably have made $10 million a year in NIL. And obviously, if NIL was a thing back then, the NCAA cover athlete alone probably would have covered Lord knows how much money at that point. But other cover athletes I could have envisioned, other athletes I could have envisioned being on the cover. Marcus Mariota, one of the most polarizing quarterbacks, very soft-spoken, but damn was he good for the Oregon Ducks. So Marcus Mariota, Baker Mayfield, 100% probably could have been a cover athlete or would have been a cover athlete. Joe Burrow, hands down, would have been a cover athlete. I could just picture Joe Burrow on the cover of NCAA Football, smoking the cigar and the glasses right after beating Clemson for the national championship. Honestly, that would be the greatest cover out of any game in history. I would have bought that game just to have the cover. I would put that on a big poster. That would probably be the most badass cover anybody could ever make for a video game. So Joe Burrow, Marcus Mariota, Baker Mayfield, Johnny Manziel, those guys. More recently, obviously, you can think of guys like Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. I can also see Derrick Henry being a guy like that when he was at Alabama. Trevor Lawrence, for obvious reasons, and Justin Fields from Ohio State. And then, honestly, as of last year, you could even consider Michael Penix or J.J. McCarthy and even put Jim Harbaugh on the cover, too. So, this is like the kid coming out of me because I so enjoyed all these games years and years ago. But, it just makes you think, who would have been the guy on the cover? But, that's the moral of the story. EA Sports College Football 25 drops this summer in 2024. I can't wait to see the shit show because I still am very hesitant just because I don't trust EA whatsoever. But we're going to see soon enough. I have high hopes for the game. I really do. I'm trying not to set my hopes too high, but honestly, we're going to see how it goes. All right, so I'm going to transition right now into the 2024 NFL Draft. Oh, what a time to be alive. Pittsburgh, please do something. Please get a quarterback. Not a Kenny Pickett. Please trade up with somebody and get a damn quarterback. Okay, so first overall pick goes to Chicago. And what does Chicago do well? Nothing. So I think that Chicago goes with USC's quarterback Caleb Williams. For those who have been telling me Drake May's better, Jaden Daniels is better, stop it. I believe Caleb Williams had a 9-1 touchdown to turnover ratio in college for his last 2 years. Caleb Williams is by far the best prospect, and I don't think it's necessarily close. You can't blame Caleb Williams for the season USC had last year. Their defense was absolutely atrocious. They couldn't stop a nosebleed. And when you're forced to win shootouts every game, yeah, guess what? You're going to lose a couple because your defense is just that awful. People said he's more mistake prone. Yeah, maybe, but when you're playing from behind because your defense can't stop a nosebleed, yeah, you're going to be making reckless throws. So the fact that people said that Caleb Williams isn't the best prospect in this draft, I think that's complete and utter nonsense. I think Caleb Williams goes first overall to Chicago. So number 2, Washington. Oh, that's another shit show of a team. But I do think that you have to go quarterback in this situation. So either Drake May or Jaden Daniels. A lot of people are high on Drake May. I am really not that high on Drake May. But I would say that if Washington wants the best chance to possibly win, like right off the rip, honestly, I'd give the chance to Jaden Daniels, LSU's quarterback, Heisman Trophy winner. So at number 2, I'm going to say that Washington takes the Heisman Trophy winner, Jaden Daniels. Okay, number 3, New England Patriots. Wow. It has just been a long, long time since New England has picked in the top 10 or the top 3. I don't think I've been alive. I don't think I've been alive the entire time that New England has not picked outside of like 25. There's no reason. New England has fallen so fucking horribly. And it's actually quite comical just because you've been ruining Pittsburgh's chances at Super Bowls for, 15 years pretty much. So New England, a lot of mock drafts have them getting Marvin Harrison, which, I think Marvin Harrison's easily the best wide receiver in this draft, and it's honestly not close at all. But the problem is, if you're New England, do you run it back with Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi? It's no secret that Mac Jones has issues in the locker room. Now, I don't know if that stems from Bill Belichick too much, but the problem is I don't think he has enough say in that locker room for guys to just, gather around him. I don't think Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi have that kind of pull. So if I'm New England, honestly, yeah, do you need weapons? Yes, but at the same time, you do need a quarterback that can actually, sling the rock around. So and a lot of people would say, well, look at what the Panthers did. Okay, let's take a look at what the Panthers did. The Panthers drafted the quarterback that they thought was the best fit for their system. Okay, fair enough. I wasn't big on Bryce Young either way, but I get where they were coming from. But the problem is that they traded away their best offensive pieces for scraps. Obviously, they're in a rebuild, but they didn't even give Bryce Young a chance to shine. But the counter of that is that you saw the Houston Texans draft C.J. Stroud. Well, Stroud led his team to the playoffs. And for all intents and purposes, that was a rebuilding roster. But C.J. Stroud ended up becoming probably the best rookie quarterback of all time. So I guess it goes both ways. Bryce Young didn't have any help. But C.J. Stroud proved you don't need otherworldly weapons to get your team to the playoffs. You have to be a good quarterback. So I think New England takes a quarterback. I think they'll go with probably Michael Penix Jr. or Bo Nix. So I'm going to say Michael Penix Jr. I think New England takes them. So number 4, Arizona Cardinals. They need weapons badly. So without a doubt, they're going to pair them with, if he's available. Obviously, this is my own mock draft. So I think at number 4, Arizona Cardinals take Marvin Harrison Jr. And that would be one hell of a combo. Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. Sorry. It's been a long morning. Excuse me. So number 5 is the Los Angeles Chargers. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh is coming in to right the ship. But a lot of mock drafts I've seen have the Chargers taking an offensive tackle or an offensive guard or an offensive lineman in general. Okay, I get that, but at the same time, your weapons are old, getting expensive, and just not available all the time. Think about it. Mike Williams, he's an okay wide receiver. Nothing too special, but he's serviceable. Keenan Allen, up in age, old, expensive. He's still good. Don't get me wrong. He's still a good solid wide receiver, but how much more time does he have left? Austin Eckler can't stay healthy. Prove that he's not the guy anymore. Good Lord, Austin Eckler screwed over so many fantasy teams this past year. Absolutely atrocious play. And then Quentin Johnston, I believe is his name, the first-round wide receiver they got last year from TCU. He's a bust. That dude can't catch a fucking cold with those stone hands. So, and honestly, no tight end to speak of. So if I'm the Chargers, I need to get Justin Herbert a weapon. Chargers fans who still think it's all Justin Herbert's fault, shut up. You really don't know football if you think Justin Herbert's the reason that the Chargers sucked so bad. So I think Jim Harbaugh is going to right the ship. I really do. He's a great coach. He's won everywhere, and he's turned around everywhere that he's went. Doesn't matter if it's Michigan. It doesn't matter if it was the 49ers, and it's not going to matter with the Chargers. He'll turn them around. He's going to make them a winner and very viable Super Bowl contenders. And if I'm the Chargers, I'm drafting Brock Bowers, tight end out of Georgia, who's just been the best tight end in college football for 2 years straight. And that's not even close. So I think at 5, the Chargers take Brock Bowers. Number 6, the New York Giants. Oh, do you need weapons or do you need a quarterback? Are you going to run it back with Daniel Jones and Tommy DeVito, or do you want more weapons? Well, I can tell you one thing. The weapons that the Giants have are not terrible. They're definitely doable. They're definitely better than teams like Washington. So if I'm the Giants, I'm taking a quarterback, and I would go with Drake May, quarterback out of North Carolina. So at 6, I have the New York Giants taking Drake May. Tennessee Titans. Oh, man. No more Derrick Henry. I think he played his last game as a Tennessee Titan, but there's just so many needs that Tennessee has. They need wide receivers. They don't have none. They need a quarterback because Will Levis honestly really isn't the guy. Ryan Tannehill's old, expensive, and he's washed. Derrick Henry's probably gone. Offensive line is absolute shit. So if honestly, I'm Tennessee, I'm preparing for the worst. This is honestly not going to be a great season. So I'd get an offensive tackle or an offensive guard or a center. Honestly, I would just beef up offensive line because, at the end of the day, you need an offensive line in order to run the ball. And Derrick Henry really didn't have much running room when it came to basically his last season as Tennessee's running back. So I would go with probably Joe Alt from Notre Dame, offensive tackle. Atlanta Falcons, you guys need a quarterback. You guys got weapons. Don't tell me anything else. You got an okay defense. This is probably your guys' best defense probably since the Super Bowl team. And I'm not saying they're great, but this is easily the best defense you've had since you went to the Super Bowl and choked a 28-3 lead. But that's besides the point. You got Bijan Robinson at running back. You have Kyle Pitts, who is criminally underused by Arthur Smith. And in general, throughout so far in Kyle Pitts' career, everybody hyped him up as being the next George Kittle, Travis Kelce, Rob Gronkowski. He was supposed to be the next great tight end. Well, they have not used him whatsoever. They throw that man the ball basically like 3 times a season. That dude should be in the conversation with the best tight ends in the league, and he's not even close to it right now. So don't tell me Atlanta doesn't have weapons. They're just not using them correctly. Drake London, so at this point, he should have been one of the top 10 receivers in the league, but obviously they don't have a quarterback to get him the ball, and he needs to stay a little bit healthier. But Atlanta Falcons, you're taking a quarterback 100%. You probably... See, it's between J.J. McCarthy and Bo Nix right now. As much as I love J.J. McCarthy, I think Bo Nix is just a better thrower of the football. I think Atlanta Falcons take Bo Nix at quarterback. Okay, back to the Chicago Bears at the number 9 pick. So, assuming that they draft Caleb Williams with the first overall, they have DJ Moore. They have okay weapons on the offense, but they'll probably definitely draft another wide receiver or another skill position player to complement Caleb Williams and DJ Moore, and an okay offensive line, not great, but okay, and a solid run game, nothing spectacular, but, doable. The Bears' defense is fine, because Lord knows the Bears only have cared about defense for the past 30 years. So I think the Bears at 9, a lot of mock drafts have this, and mine is going to have this too. Rome Odunze, wide receiver from Washington, I think he goes to the Bears. At number 10, we got the New York Jets. God help Aaron Rodgers, and God help the Jets, because they need an offensive tackle to actually take care of Aaron Rodgers this season. I swear, I was very hyped up to see Aaron Rodgers play for the Jets. And I didn't think they were going to win the division or anything, but, it would be interesting. It was going to be interesting to see Aaron Rodgers play for a new team. Like all the old-time quarterbacks from who I grew up watching, Brady. It was weird seeing him go to Tampa. Peyton Manning. It was weird to see him in Denver. Obviously, Ben Roethlisberger stayed with Pittsburgh the entire time. But it's just so weird seeing all the older quarterbacks from who I watched when I was a kid move on to other teams. Like Brett, and this was a little bit younger for me because I didn't really watch the Brett Favre Packers, but Brett Favre on the Vikings was weird. It's, just Aaron, and now Aaron Rodgers to the Jets. So it's honestly very, very bizarre. So, and of course, tearing his Achilles 4 plays into the entire season and did not play the rest of the year. So obviously, Jets, you guys need an offensive tackle who can actually protect Aaron Rodgers. So you're going to take probably Penn State's offensive tackle, Fashanu. That's his last name. I do not know how to say his first name. I'm not going to try and butcher it. Feel free to tell me how to say his first name. But the offensive tackle from Penn State, I definitely think he'll go to the Jets because they desperately need it. All right. So, in a little bit of a time crunch, we're going to go all the way up to pick number 20. We're going to end with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, at number 11, we got the Minnesota Vikings. Do you run it back with Kirk Cousins? I think this is the last year that they run it back with Kirk Cousins, possibly. But honestly, with guys like Danielle Hunter heading for free agency, they definitely will need help in the pass rush. So I think they would take Jared Verse from Florida State. I think that dude is an absolute stud. He has a high motor, and he gets after the quarterback. So I think the Vikings take Jared Verse from Florida State. Now, Denver also needs help on the pass rush. And honestly, they're kind of stuck with I don't know what's going to happen with the Russell Wilson situation, but I don't think that at this point in the draft, at pick number 12, I don't think there's a quarterback worth taking to really, that can replace what Russell Wilson is doing. So I think that Denver would take a pass rusher. I think they would take Alabama's edge rusher, Dallas Turner. Okay, Las Vegas Raiders. Where do I start with the shit show that team is? They need a quarterback horribly, but they also definitely need some DBs. They need any sense of defense that can help out Max Crosby and those guys. So this is just so bizarre just because I don't if I'm the Raiders, I'm taking Nate Wiggins from Clemson, the cornerback from Clemson. If their secondary was absolutely god-awful last year. So if you get Nate Wiggins, at least you can shore up some of that. Eventually, the Raiders are going to need to address the quarterback situation. Aiden O'Connell's not the guy. I personally still think they should have ran it with Derek Carr, but, I guess that's why I'm not an NFL GM. Pick number 14, the New Orleans Saints. I think you go with Alabama's offensive tackle, J.C. Latham. You got to shore up the offensive line because you're investing a lot of money into Derek Carr, to potentially be the next guy. But, all signs are pointing that he is a bust now, that Derek Carr is completely washed. So, if I'm the Saints, I'm at least going to try and shore up the offensive line to help out our supposed quarterback of the future. So we're going to move on to number 15, the Indianapolis Colts. I think if you're the Colts, now, as much as you need defense, I think that you should honestly I think that you should go wide receiver. I think that you should go all in on the offensive side with Anthony Richardson coming back from injury and just completely build around Anthony Richardson. I think if Anthony Richardson did not get hurt, I think they're in the playoffs instead of C.J. Stroud and the Texans. So I think if you're the Colts, I think you go and draft Keon Coleman or Adonai Mitchell from Texas. Honestly, this is tough. This honestly is a little bit tough because I love both of those players. But if I'm the Colts, I think I'd go with Keon Coleman from Florida State. I think he just has a much higher upside. Okay, Seattle Seahawks at number 16. So are you going to run it back with Geno Smith? Maybe. I think that's a good possibility, but they definitely need to shore up the defense. They definitely need to shore up the rush defense. So I think that they'll take a defensive tackle at this point. And if I were them, I'm taking Leonard Taylor III from the University of Miami. Absolute stud. So if I'm Seattle, since Leonard Williams is a pending free agent, I don't know if the Seahawks are necessarily going to work out a deal with him. So honestly, it would be a nice compliment to the interior of the defense. I'd say it wasn't their offensive, their run defense wasn't terrible, but it could definitely be shored up. And I think Leonard Taylor would add that, add some depth that they need at the defensive line position. So we're going to move on to Jacksonville Jaguars. See, I'm a big proponent in drafting offensive players over defensive players, but if I'm Jacksonville, like I need help in the secondary. Ever since they started very hot to the season. I believe they started the season 8-3 and then completely shit the bed after Trevor Lawrence got hurt. So if anything, I would be drafting another offensive guard or an offensive tackle to make sure that Trevor Lawrence isn't going to get hurt again. So I think you take Javion Cohen from Miami. He's an offensive guard. Okay, we're going to move on to the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals. Who dey? They need offensive line help. That's who they is. They definitely need help on the offensive line, because if you cannot keep affording Joe Burrow to get hurt. Now, obviously, it was a wrist injury that took out Joe Burrow this year, but at the same time, he's always getting the hell beat out of him by, his offensive line just missing tackles and everything. So why not go out and get a guy like Amarius Mims from Georgia? Just shore up the offensive line. You are a franchise tag T. Higgins, so he's not going anywhere. So, and you still have Jamar Chase. You still have Joe Mixon. Shore up the offensive line. Your defense will be fine. Like, Joe Burrow is enough, just like Pat Mahomes this past year. Pat Mahomes is enough to, win you games. Same thing with Joe Burrow. And I think Joe Burrow is the only guy who can go up head-to-head with Mahomes and beat him consistently, like I said a couple weeks ago. So I think you got to do everything you can to protect him. So Cincinnati's taking that offensive guard from Georgia. Okay, number 19, the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams, probably the biggest shock team. Obviously, I think they were the second youngest team to make the NFL playoffs last year behind Green Bay. I mean, Green Bay was just a bunch of kids at that point. But, LA, older team, but a very young roster. And what I mean by that is Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald. Those guys are the old guys, and they have a bunch of young talent that's really, really good. Kyron Williams, running back from Notre Dame, he was very good. Puka Nacua, who the hell thought he was going to be one of the best wide receivers in the league? I sure as hell didn't, but absolutely fantastic. I think if I'm the Los Angeles Rams, I'm shoring up the offensive line again. So maybe Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon, interior offensive lineman, I would go offensive line. So I think that's what you roll with if you're the Los Angeles Rams. Okay, and then the final pick I'm going to make today is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'll talk about the rest of the NFL draft later down the line, closer to April. But Pittsburgh Steelers. So let's say hypothetically that they ran it back with Kenny Pickett. God help us. But as far as I know, if they ran it back with Kenny Pickett, the biggest thing for me would be to get another skill position player, honestly, because, and necessarily, Pittsburgh doesn't even really need much. They do need a quarterback. But, of course, we're doing hypotheticals right here because I think personally that Pittsburgh is going to trade up in the draft to probably get a quarterback. And there's also rumors swirling around that Pittsburgh will trade for Justin Fields, which personally I would 100% take at this point. I'm not saying he's a great option, but I think he's definitely a better option than what Kenny Pickett or Mason Rudolph have to offer. We finally cut Mitch Trubisky. Goodbye. Don't come back. But if I'm Pittsburgh at 20, so let's say hypothetically Pittsburgh traded with Chicago and got Justin Fields and still managed to keep the 20th overall pick. If you do that, then I think you can afford to go defense. And if I'm Pittsburgh, I'm going... See, this is just so tough just because there's a lot of defensive needs that, Pittsburgh really has, especially linebacker. Pittsburgh's linebacking core is absolutely stunk this past year, but they also need help on the defensive end side, the defensive tackle position, just because Cameron Hayward, he's getting older. A lot of the defense is getting older and more expensive. I mean, the only real, true, consistent one is Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt. Those are the only true consistent players year in and year out. But so hypothetically speaking, let's say, and Joey Porter Jr. has a big, bright future with Pittsburgh. I really think Pittsburgh could make noise in the future, but it all depends on who the quarterback is going forward. I don't believe it's Kenny Pickett anymore. I sold my stock on him a long time ago. It's not Mason Rudolph. As much as I love Rudolph, I think he's better than Kenny Pickett, honestly. But I've sold my stock on both of them. And the way Rudolph played towards the end of the year, I think he earned himself another contract with another team. But let's just say, hypothetically, Pittsburgh ended up getting Justin Fields, and they have all their offensive pieces right now. Offensive line showed improvement from last year, so I don't necessarily think you need to get another offensive lineman. It can't hurt to have depth. I get that, but I don't think it was bad whatsoever. So if I'm Pittsburgh, you definitely need help in the secondary still. Cornerbacks seem to be all right. When it comes to safety position, Minkah Fitzpatrick, I think he had just a slump year. I think he'll bounce back easily, so why not go out and get another safety? I would say Cameron Kitchens from Miami. I really think he's the best option when it comes to safeties in the league. But again, this could flip-flop between so many different players. But hypothetically speaking, if Pittsburgh ended up getting Justin Fields before the draft and still kept the 20th overall pick without giving that to Chicago, with everything else they have on that roster, I think realistically, the only thing they would need to do is shore up the secondary, because I think that the linebackers and I think the entire defensive front seven is going to be much better just because they're going to be healthy. New season, no injuries, clean slate. So I think you go with Cameron Kitchens from Miami. So that's it, guys. We just went through the first 20 picks of the NFL draft that's coming up in a couple months. And I talked about the EA Sports college football game that's reappearing. Again, I apologize for not posting last week. I really appreciate you all being patient with me. But that's going to wrap it up this week, ladies and gentlemen. Be sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends, leave some comments down below. I'm your host, Dominic Lako. God bless.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no, I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry.